joining us again. John and Sandra here. Board of Governors of the NCAA voted to pass this new policy. In doing so, Caitlin, it said the decision preserves opportunity for transgender student athletes while balancing fairness, inclusion, and safety for all who compete. Your reaction to the decision?
Disappointed. Basically, the NCAA just kicked the can down the road. And it's unfortunate. I am out there to protect women's sports. I mean, we had this issue in Connecticut with some high school athletes, transgender athletes, that were just cleaning the clock of all the girls. And the girls missed out on some opportunity. I don't know why the governing bodies of many of these different organizations are so intent on getting such a small number of people. I don't know of any other transgender swimmer that's out there. We're talking one person right now. Mm-hmm. And it is having such an effect on the entire sport. Why they're bending over to this one person, it's the woke world gone wild.
Well,
it doesn't have to be that way.
Caitlin, there is another transgender swimmer out there who swims for Yale. It happens to be a woman who's transitioning to a man, who is the only athlete so far that has beaten Leah Thomas. But let me ask you this question, because now they're looking at testosterone levels, and testosterone levels have typically been used to find out if anybody's doping. Now they're going to look at it to see if somebody's got testosterone levels that are concomitant with their gender. But I have read studies that testosterone suppression therapy and even low levels of testosterone doesn't necessarily erase the natural advantage that males get during puberty in terms of body size, muscle mass, cardiovascular system. And I wanted to ask you this question. As we get older, clearly, and I know a lot about this, we lose muscle mass. We're not as strong as we were in our heyday. But do you now...
Oh, I know that.
Do you, Caitlin Jenner, now, after the transition, still believe that you are stronger than the average former female athlete?
Yes. My body structure, the length of my arms, the size of my feet, the size of my hands. In Leah Thomas's case, I don't care about her testosterone levels now for the last year or two. Honestly, I care about her testosterone levels for the first 16, 17 years of her life.
Yeah.
That's what we're fighting against here. Mm-hmm. I obviously have been through all of this. I have no more testosterone going through my body. I just live on estrogen, okay? And I can still hit the golf ball a long way. I got asked to play in the women's tournament at my club. And honestly, I declined because I didn't think it was fair. I mean, I can outdrive all the girls by 100 yards. I can reach every par 5 and 2. It's just not fair. So I would never play with, in a tournament with the women. I'll play every day for fun. Actually, the women are more fun to play with. The conversation is much better. And but as far as competing against them, honestly, I don't think it's fair. But that's my own personal choice.
Well, you mentioned you mentioned the athletes in Connecticut. I just want to get this in here and get your reaction to her, because you mentioned Chelsea. Chelsea Mitchell was one of those track athletes who said she could not find a level playing field, and she felt like she really lost out during her high school career. Real quick, Caitlin, here, she joined us last hour.
Well, sports is all about fairness. And it isn't fair to put a biological male in the female category, and that's why we have sex-separated sports. And of course, there's a place for everyone in sports, but the question is, where's it most fair? And it isn't fair to have these transgender athletes in the female category.
So there's a place for everyone, she says. So what's the solution? What decision from the NCAA would make you happy? Because there's a lot of criticism of it, and they're now being asked to reevaluate it.
And honestly, they didn't reevaluate it. They just kicked the can down the road, like I said earlier. I feel for her. I think she is absolutely 100% right. Look at how hard women have fought over the last 30, 40 years. I remember back in the 80s, and Donna DeVerona, I saw her on a piece earlier, who worked so hard on Title IX for equality and pay and getting women into sport. sports and everything. Actually, I am working right now to build a team in the W Series. It's in conjunction with Formula One, and it's an all-women series. And to me, we promote women in racing, and that's good, and women in sports, and we want that. I feel sorry for her. She was deprived of an opportunity because of a transgender athlete, and it just doesn't have to be that way. There's only, a small amount of transgender athletes that are out there. Why do we want to ruin sports for just a couple of people?
So Caitlin, let me ask you this question if we could, because former Olympic swimmer Donna DiVerona was on our air the other day, and she pointed out that sports is inherently discriminatory because she couldn't become an Olympic weightlifter if she decided to, because she just doesn't have the stature and the physical stature and the talent for it.
Right.
But should sports discriminate and not allow transgender athletes to compete?
Boy, that's a tough one to answer. I think we, right now, have to look at this issue a lot closer. I know the International Olympic Committee has been working on this subject for years. Back when I was competing, all the women had to take a saliva test, okay, and to check their DNA to make sure they were female. The Soviet Union, the East German women, we remember, they had their coach, the athlete, and a doctor working along with them, and it wasn't fair. And the Olympic Committee has worked really hard to try to find something. They've had hermaphrodites, basically born with both genders, and what do we do now? So they've worked with it for a long time. I think we just had, especially at the lower levels, when there's such a difference between men and women, at the lower levels, we have to look at that a lot closer. Nobody talks about really female-to-male athletes. We had one female-to-male athlete make it all the way on the world triathlon team who had transitioned from female to male. We don't talk about that because obviously we're not caring. It's mostly the advantage that a male-to-female athlete has. We have to look at this. We got to stop, sit back, look at this issue, because number one, it has to be fair to women's sport. That's the number one thing. We've got to be fair. And it's not an easy answer. It's a very complicated subject.
Not
but
easy
we have
answer.
to be fair.
Goodbye.
You said yesterday the woke world is not working for women's sports, and Chelsea Mitchell's lawyer joined us last hour, and she said something similar. She said these woke mobs are trying to engage in cancel culture, were her words. Caitlin, thanks for joining us. We hope to have you again on it.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult one. I don't know if there's any right answer, but we have to come up with the best answer. But the number one concern that we have to have is protecting women's sport.
Yeah. Thank you again for joining us today. Really appreciate it. We'll get you back soon.
All right.
Thanks, Caitlin. All right, coming up, the LA County Sheriff, Alex Villanueva, will be joining us. He's our guest. He said Brianna Kupfer's slang, of course, the UCLA grad student who was stabbed in broad daylight working at a furniture store there, is a result on soft on-crime policies. He will join us after the break.
We gotta tell people that Liberty Mutual customizes car insurance.